I had been in a relationship with Sarah for 7 years, but eventually she ended up falling in love with Julian, my adopted brother. I was exhausted by the whole situation, so I decided to give a chance to Claire, a woman who had been pursuing me for quite a long time. Claire seemed to love me deeply. There was a time when she hiked all the way up a famous mountain, stopping to kneel and pray for my health. And she even bought a very rare, expensive watch called the Heart of the Ocean at an auction specifically for me. However, just 7 days before we were scheduled to get married, I overheard a conversation that changed everything. Someone asked her, "Claire, you don't actually love Ethan. Why are you going through with this charade and sacrificing your entire life just to marry him?" Claire's face was obscured by the shadows as she nervously twisted the engagement ring on her finger. Her voice was cold and steady when she replied, "As long as I am alive, I will never let Ethan hurt Julian." Julian. That is the name of my adopted brother. My hands were shaking as I answered a phone call from my academic advisor, Dr. Hayes, and told her that I agreed to go overseas to pursue my doctorate. Later on, I heard that the wedding turned into a complete disaster. Sarah and Claire apparently got into a massive argument, both of them frantic as they tried to locate the groom who had run away. Standing outside the bar that night, I felt like I couldn't get enough air into my lungs. Tokore. If I hadn't heard Claire say those words with my own ears, I never would have believed that the love she showed me was entirely fabricated. The person talking to her had pushed further, asking, "But Claire, you've loved Julian from a distance for so long. Are you really okay with just protecting him secretly like this? You insist you only like Julian, so this has nothing to do with him, but you demanded to get married on the exact same day as Sarah, just because you were worried Ethan would try to steal his brother's woman, right?" Claire had replied. "Every time I see Julian, my heart races. I am worried that Ethan won't be able to let go of his past with Sarah. He and Sarah were involved for years. Even though Ethan gave up his career for me, it isn't enough security. Keeping Ethan on a short leash forever, tied to my side, is the only way I can ensure Julian is safe." Not long before this, Claire had rented a private yacht to propose to me, and I had said yes. I truly thought she loved me so much that our 5 years together were finally leading to a happy ending. I was wrong. She was just celebrating the fact that she had finally trapped me in a cage so I could never be a threat to Julian again. It is difficult to explain exactly how I felt in that moment. After standing there for a long time, I grabbed my chest because the pain was sharp and intense, and then I stumbled out into the heavy rain. Claire came home around midnight. She took off her coat and walked to the side of the bed, where she found me soaking wet and burning up with a fever. "Baby, when did you go out? You have a high fever," she said. I was shivering uncontrollably because of the chill. My jaw was clenched so tight that I couldn't speak. It was a physical reaction to the stress, a complete shutdown of my system after realizing the betrayal. Claire looked terrified. "Ethan, don't bite your lip like that. You're bleeding," she said. Without hesitating, she put her index finger into my mouth to stop me, her face showing nothing but fear and concern. It felt like I was transported back to the past. Years ago, my parents had abandoned me in the mountains for Julian's sake. I had fallen off a cliff and almost died. Back then, Claire had braved a terrible storm to kneel and bow every few steps up that mountain to pray for my recovery. When I saw her forehead bruised from bowing and her knees scraped raw, and saw her limping, I decided to let go of the anger I felt toward my parents and Julian. I chose to be with her. But tonight, I had heard Claire tell her best friend the truth about that day. She had said back then, I knelt all the way up that mountain to show the heavens how sincere I was, so that Julian's heart condition would improve. Ethan just got lucky and survived on his own. With every bit of strength I had left, I bit down hard on Claire's finger. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth immediately. Claire didn't pull her hand away. It seemed like she didn't even feel the pain, her face just full of anxiety as she said, "Ethan, bite down. Please, just don't hurt yourself. I would rather you break my finger." Finally, I let go. Her blood was in my mouth, and I found it repulsive. Claire rushed me to the hospital that night. She held my hand and stayed by my bedside the entire night without sleeping at all. "How sweet," I heard the young nurses whispering nearby. "Miss Davis loves her fiancé so much. She has been up all night taking care of him." To the rest of the world, the heiress of the Davis family was known for being cold and uninterested in men. Only I knew the actual truth. She was worried. She was worried that if I didn't make it to the wedding on time, it would ruin Julian's happiness. When I woke up, Claire was there, carefully feeding me oatmeal one spoonful at a time. The finger I had bitten was wrapped in thick bandages, but she was only talking about me. "Ethan, I wish I could take this sickness for you. Please get better soon for me, okay?" I swallowed the oatmeal without showing any emotion. I suddenly realized that this was the last breakfast we would ever have together. A deep sadness churned inside me. I wanted to scream, to tear the room apart and demand answers. The Claire I used to know had always stood just a step away, waiting for me to notice her. Slowly, I had fallen for her overwhelming affection, only to discover in a single night that it was all fake. She had used the pretense of love to trap me. I finally broke down and started crying. Claire panicked, pulling me into her arms and wiping my tears. "Ethan, does it hurt that much? I'll go get the doctor." She took out her phone. Just then, she got a text message and her face went pale. "Ethan, something urgent came up at the office. Take your medicine and get some sleep. I'll be back to stay with you soon." Before I could say a word, she pushed the door open and hurried away. I quietly looked at my own phone. Julian had just posted a photo on his social media feed with the caption, "My heart is feeling a little weird." The background of the photo was a sterile white hospital room. Remembering the frantic look on Claire's face as she left, a sharp pain shot through my heart. My phone buzzed over and over again with a string of taunting messages from Julian. "Bro, Sarah managed to get that tuxedo you wanted for me. And that church you wanted for your wedding? Mom and Dad secured it for me. As for that Heart of the Ocean watch from the auction, do you think my future sister-in-law will give it to me?" A man's intuition is a strange thing. When you are lost in the maze of being in love, it seems to fail completely. But the moment you wake up, all the clues and signs become obvious. In recent years, Claire, who had invested heavily in artificial intelligence, Daintreux, had surpassed both my family's business and Sarah's family business. Her company grew rapidly. But whenever something of mine was taken away, Claire would look helpless and say, "That Sarah is too cunning. Don't worry, Ethan, I'll find you an even better tuxedo. Your parents are just playing favorites. I'll convince them to come to our wedding, I promise." With the power she had now, it wasn't that she couldn't win, it was that she couldn't bear to see Julian upset. The sky outside was a dull gray. I walked toward the VIP wing of the hospital. When I was 9 years old, our nanny kidnapped me and sold me to a family in a remote mountain village. I was rescued 3 years later. There wasn't a single part of my body that wasn't scarred. When my mother saw me, her heart ached, and she started to embrace me. But next to her stood the son they had adopted while I was gone. Julian was terrified by my wounds and started crying even harder than I was. My mother panicked. She hugged him tightly and turned to me, saying, "Ethan, Julian's heart is weak. The doctor said he can't handle any shocks. We're going to take him home first." Sarah, who had just arrived, gave me a quick glance and left with them. Only Julian looked back, a triumphant smirk on his face. I stood at the door of the hospital room now. My mother was feeding Julian a slice of apple, her voice full of pity. "Honey, Ethan was spoiled by us. That's why he is insisting on having his wedding on the same day as yours." My father was angry. "Don't worry, your mother and I will only attend your wedding." Their tone, itsu, dripping with disdain for their biological son while defending their adopted one, made my stomach turn. I felt like I was going to be sick. Julian tugged on Claire's sleeve. "My brother is so headstrong. It must be tough on you, Claire." Suddenly, he clutched his chest in pain. Claire's face changed instantly. "Julian, is it your heart? I'll find the best specialist in the world for you." "It's nothing," Julian said. I just had a dream last night that I wore the Heart of the Ocean watch, and I felt all better." She didn't hesitate for a second. "Julian, if you like it, I'll go get it for you right now." My parents' faces filled with gratitude. "It's our fault we spoiled Ethan. He was always trying to take your things." My heart was so numb it couldn't feel anything more. When someone doesn't love you, even your breathing feels like a mistake. Twisting the truth, turning black into white. What did any of that matter? Julian sent me a picture. He was wearing the Heart of the Ocean, the sapphire watch Claire had bought for me. I clenched my jaw, desperately trying to stop the bitter tears from welling up in my eyes. Claire had once told me, "Ethan, this watch is the only one of its kind in the world. It represents my undying love for you." Her devotion had been addictive. Now I had woken up to find it was all a lie from the very beginning. Is the adult world just a contest to see who is the better actor? I covered my mouth, feeling the bitter taste of a broken heart. When I lifted my hand, I felt tears streaming down my face. When my advisor called, I almost dropped the phone. I promised her, "I'll book my flight to leave in 7 days." The hospital room door was thrown open. A woman's anxious voice called out, "Ethan, where are you going?" Seeing who it was, the heart that had leaped into my throat finally settled. It wasn't Claire. I spoke coldly. "Sarah, you lost the right to ask me anything 5 years ago." Silence filled the room. That was Sarah tonight. Her father and my father were best friends and had arranged for us to be married when we were children. Growing up, I loved following my big sister Sarah around. She took good care of me too. My first designer watch, my first pair of limited edition sneakers, my first designer briefcase. They were all gifts from Sarah. Marrying her when I grew up became my one and only dream. But during the 3 years I was gone, my father brought Julian home. He looked a bit like me. So. Sarah's disappointment, my mother's grief, my father's stress, all of it was soothed by this poor little orphan. There was no place for me in my own home anymore. It took every ounce of my strength not to drown in that pain. Sarah had been watching my expression, and she said angrily, "Claire actually gave the Heart of the Ocean to Julian. Do you have any idea what that means?" I replied, "Of course. Where the heart is, there is home." Seeing my lack of reaction, Sarah couldn't believe it. "Claire's heart isn't with you, and you're still going to marry her?" She was agitated. I just felt weary. "Sarah, Claire isn't the first person to abandon me for Julian. First it was my parents. Then it was the woman I thought was my fiancée since childhood. If I had to fight for every single one of them, could I ever win?" Sarah's face went white. She didn't know why she had come to tell me all this. Maybe it was the ecstatic joy on Julian's face when he received the watch that made her uncomfortable. Maybe it was the growing power of Claire's family, which made my father treat her with increasing deference, that made her feel threatened. Or maybe, just maybe, it was because she had finally gotten a taste of what it felt like to be ignored, just as I had been. It was only then that she realized the little boy who used to follow her around had probably been through a lot. For a moment, Sarah didn't know what to say. When Claire saw Sarah sitting by my hospital bed, her face darkened. "What are you two doing?" Sarah clenched her fists, not wanting to speak. I said flatly, "She came to tell me that you gave the Heart of the Ocean watch to Julian." Sarah looked at me, her expression wounded. She couldn't believe that the boy who once defended her most fiercely would now lay his own pride bare in front of his rival. It felt like I truly didn't care about her at all anymore. Claire shot a hateful glare at Sarah. After Sarah left, Claire threw her arms around me and explained, "Ethan, it's not what you think. Julian is your brother, and your parents are so worried about his health. His heart is weak, so he begged me to give him the watch as a sort of good luck charm. It's just like the prayer talismans I got for you when I knelt all the way up the mountain." I remained silent. Claire swore up and down, making all sorts of promises. "If you like, I'll buy you another even more expensive set of cufflinks right now." I said, "Forget it. I never really liked that stuff anyway." A heart mixed with shards of glass hurts more than anything. Claire wasn't happy with that. She had her assistant keep an eye on the auction houses, determined to buy an even more brilliant set of ruby cufflinks. She was adamant that I would be the most dazzling person at the wedding. But there was no us anymore. What wedding? I went home to pack my things. Claire wrapped her arms around me from behind, a confused look on her face. "Honey, your closet looks a lot emptier. The seasons are changing. I wanted to buy some new clothes." I asked, "But weren't those your favorite clothes?" She replied, "You get tired of things eventually." A wave of panic inexplicably washed over Claire. "Ethan, are you mad at me for not spending enough time with you lately? I told you, after we get married, I'll give you a warm home." I followed her gaze. On the dresser was a snow globe. Inside, a happy family lived with their little dog. The memory pulled me back to my 18th birthday. My parents insisted on holding it for both me and Julian. We wore identical suits. We stood in front of a large cake. Suddenly, Julian lunged forward and shoved my head down. A toothpick from a strawberry on the cake nearly stabbed me in the eye. Frosting smeared all over my suit. I was a complete mess. Tears of pain streamed down my face. Julian started crying. "Brother, I didn't mean to. My classmates all play like this. I thought you'd like it." My mother played peacemaker. "Ethan, Julian is younger than you. He's just being playful." My father also told me not to make a big deal out of it. I wanted to punch Julian. But Sarah, whom I had known for over a decade, grabbed my wrist and squeezed. She held on so tightly that it hurt. Everyone was on Julian's side. I was so wronged I didn't know what to say. I straightened my clothes and walked away. No one came after me to comfort me. It was dark when a girl appeared in the park. It was Claire from the class next to mine. She said she admired me for always getting first place in math. The girl used a tissue to wipe the frosting off my suit. She went to a store and bought me the snow globe, telling me my wish would definitely come true. Later, Claire learned that my wish was to have a home of my own. She bought me a house and let me fill it up piece by piece, like a hamster moving into a new cage. The sky blue curtains, the matching couple's mugs, the vase of roses on the dining table. They were all witnesses to our love. Looking into the woman's deep eyes, a thought suddenly struck me. All this time, even back then, Claire had already been Julian's guardian angel. The realization sent a chill down my spine. Claire's eyes were filled with bewilderment. "Ethan, why are you shivering? Are you cold?" My body was cold. My heart was colder. I repeated it to myself silently. Lies. It was all lies. I can't love Claire anymore. I won't love Claire anymore. My sudden coldness threw Claire into a panic. She stuck to me like glue. She wouldn't leave my side. At breakfast, she sat right next to me. I couldn't push her away. When I went to the bathroom, she'd stand outside the door, analyzing the situation out loud. "Honey, you don't have cold feet, do you? No way. You love me so much? You've always wanted a home with me. Why would you be afraid to marry me?" As I listened to her talk to herself, my mind was consumed with one thought: how to get away from her and go to my parents' house to get my passport. Claire had to go to an auction eventually. I went back to my family's home alone. Standing at the door, I heard my father say, "Julian is getting married soon. Why don't we give him 10% of our shares as a wedding gift?" My mother smiled and agreed. "Julian makes sure the housekeeper stews bird's nest soup for me every day. He's so obedient and caring, he's really won my heart." Then she seemed to remember something. "What about Ethan? Are we not giving him anything?" My father snorted. "That ungrateful brat. Ever since he came back from the mountains, he's done nothing but give us attitude and never comes home. It's like we wronged him once and now we owe him for life. How can we ever rely on him in the future?" That wasn't true. At first, I was like a wounded bird. I couldn't wait to return to the safety of my parents' wings. But I found that everything had changed. The room my mother had decorated for me, the video game console my father had bought from abroad, the beautiful watch Sarah had given me. They all belonged to Julian now. I wanted them back. But Julian would burst into tears on command, clutching his chest as if he were about to faint. My father slapped me across the face. "You spent a few years fending for yourself and forgot all your manners." My mother looked at me with disappointment. When I was at my lowest, Julian was there for me. Where were you then? Where was I? I was being beaten by my foster father. I was washing tub after tub of clothes for my foster mother. Inside the villa, my father's voice suddenly rose. Remember that time Ethan got jealous of Julian and pushed him into the pool? That kid spent 3 years out there and came back completely rotten. I froze. It was clearly Julian who pushed me. But they refused to believe it. They were convinced that since Julian couldn't swim, he would never risk his own life just to push me into the water. Forget it. Some misunderstandings are destined to never be cleared up. Some love should have been taken back a long, long time ago. I pushed the door open and walked in. My father immediately started yelling at me. So, you finally decided to come home? You're so selfish, always competing with Julian for everything. My mother sighed. Ethan, Julian is much more considerate than you. He's willing to have a joint wedding with you so that your father and I won't be in an awkward position, so people won't laugh at us for not attending our own son's wedding. I lowered my eyes and gave a cold smile. My father snorted again. Claire's company is doing much better than Sarah's now. Your mother and I got Julian a new house. You should learn to be content and not ask for one. I smiled, but my eyes were full of scorn. I won't. After all, Dad, you've said before that I can have things you give me, but I can't ask for them. My mother, seemingly oblivious to my coldness, said with satisfaction, Ethan, I'm glad you understand. If you just behave, our family will only get better and better. My quiet compliance gave my parents a great sense of accomplishment. They didn't notice that Claire and Julian had returned. She looked at my impassive face and suddenly felt a pang of panic. Just as she was about to say something, Julian hugged my mother and spoke first. Mom, Dad, I love the 5,000-square-foot penthouse you got for me. It's right across from Claire's office. My mother affectionately tapped his nose. You like being in the middle of the action, so your father picked a spot right in the city center. At the dinner table, my father clapped Claire on the shoulder, looking pleased. Thanks to that friend you introduced us to, we got a 50% discount. His words made me laugh out loud. Just a little while ago, I'd overheard Claire telling her assistant to secure the landmark building across from her company at all costs. Claire glanced at me guiltily and mumbled, It was a business friend who was in a hurry to sell. If you want a new house, I'll buy one for you. Don't be upset, okay? I shook off her outstretched hand. Tell enough lies and it becomes the story of the boy who cried wolf. Only a fool would believe you. I felt the passport in my pocket. 3 more days, and I could finally leave them all behind. The high-end tailor shop called to tell me to come in for a fitting. The original suit had been snatched up by Julian. Claire had hired a famous designer to create a new, custom-made one for me. I looked at myself in the mirror. The hand-stitched tuxedo seemed to blend the night sky and starlight, with diamonds on the lapel sparkling like a constellation. I had wanted to walk toward the love of my life in a respectable suit. It didn't matter now. As long as I learned to love myself, happiness wouldn't pass me by. Julian showed up. Brother, even an expensive suit doesn't look all that great on you. His words were mocking, but the jealousy in his eyes was impossible to hide. I remained indifferent. Julian rolled up his sleeve, revealing the watch on his wrist. Brother, Claire gave me the Heart of the Ocean watch. I told her I wanted the new ruby cufflinks she just bought at auction, and she agreed immediately. How many times has it been now? All I have to do is ask, and I can easily take anything I want from you, whether it's Mom and Dad, Sarah, or Claire. I could tell he was gloating, but I still couldn't be bothered to respond. Ethan, why don't you get on your knees and beg me? Otherwise, be careful, or I might just steal Claire from you too. Ethan, does being a predator make you happy, yeah? Defa, why were you born a rich kid while I had to be an orphan? I love watching people who think they're high and mighty fall from their pedestals, preferably into the mud. Ethan, I will take everything from you. Seeing his confident expression, a sharp pain twisted in my heart. This was a sadness only those who have never been loved can feel. I held back the tears that threatened to fall and curved my lips into a smile. Julian, Only the truly desperate spend their days picking up other people's trash. If you love garbage so much, feel free to collect it all. I didn't want any of it anymore. The final day before the wedding, Claire tricked me into going to my parents' house. She said they were cooking a farewell dinner for their 2 sons. Julian was on the sofa, laughing and joking intimately with my mother. Sarah didn't look well and was drinking by herself. Once we were at the table, Claire's tone was full of concern. "Ethan, Dad's cooking tonight. You should eat more." My father had started as a poor kid, working as a kitchen hand for a master chef. With my mother's family connections, he built a successful empire in the restaurant industry. When I was little, he was too busy with business to cook a single meal for me. Looking at a table full of dishes Julian loved, I had no appetite. My father slammed his chopsticks down. "Ethan, what's with the attitude? You're about to get married and you're still going to give your father attitude?" I said, "My stomach is sensitive. I can't eat spicy food." He shot back, "You're just so picky. Julian never complains about food and even praises my cooking." Claire put a piece of spicy meat in my bowl. "Just eat a little. I'll make you some porridge when we get home. Don't make your father unhappy." I was finally done with all of it. I put down my chopsticks, ready to leave the table. Someone felt his paternal authority had been challenged. My father stood up, displeased, and raised his hand to slap me. The sound was incredibly loud. My head snapped to the side, my ears ringing. Claire was horrified. "Dad!" My father had been drinking a lot. Now his eyes were wide with anger, and he wouldn't let it go. "Ethan, it's your own damn fault for having such a difficult personality. Who knows what kind of trouble you'll cause after you marry Claire?" While Claire and a surprisingly intervening Sarah scrambled to find me an ice pack, he leaned in and ordered in a low voice, "Claire's career is taking off, since you're so unlikable. Why don't you just call off the wedding and let Julian have her? So tonight was an ambush." I laughed mockingly. "Giving up Sarah wasn't enough, huh? I have to throw in another one? If you still consider me your father, you'll call off this wedding and give Julian time to think things through." Looking at the table of half-eaten food, I felt the last shred of warmth between us had been severed. "Don't worry. Julian will get his wish very soon." Back at home, Claire hugged me. "Ethan, tomorrow you'll finally be my groom. I've waited for this day for so long." How ridiculous. At my parents' house, I'd heard Julian say to her, "Claire, you're so good to me. I think I'm starting to fall for you. But I can't let go of Sarah. My heart is such a mess. What should I do?" Claire had planted a devout kiss on his forehead. "It's okay.